Welcome everyone to Coach in the Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about health and fitness and how we tie it into our traditional ways. Because if we look at where we're going as a society, we are becoming more fragile, more unhealthy, and there has to be a reason why we do it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. To make sure to share this video and our audio to help build a like-minded community of growth-minded individuals who want to get to a better life. When it comes to how we once were, our traditional ways, our modern ways are going to be leading us to more health issues, to more illnesses, and to more people who are in a state of mind that is not conducive to success, to happiness, and to longevity. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to bring on someone who is going to be dealing with more so wisdom than knowledge, more so than the modern ways of the typical society member. We have to understand that what we are doing today is actually putting us in a worse place than where we were 100 years ago, maybe even 30. So we have to try to reverse that. And I'm not saying you have to change your life. We just have to change our understanding of some things. And then once we can do that, then everything else will start to fall into place. So let's get into that interview with Stavros and myself.
Been selling things out well. What facts belong, it's hard to say. Your pattern is so hard to tell.
Welcome, Stavros Mastrogiannis, to Coaching in Session. How are you?
I'm doing great, Michael. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming on. So you are a sustainable weight loss coach. I know that's just kind of the blanket statement of what you do, but in your own words, can you tell the world who you are and how you help?
I specialize in helping people not just lose weight, but keep it off. I'm the founder of the Stavros Method. It's basically a 6-month program that helps people develop 5 specific habits. We're going to be talking about them today.
Was this something that you created yourself, or was this something that's kind of been out in the world and you kind of just made it more people friendly?
When I first got into the business, actually, I first set out to find a diet because I was focusing more on the exercise aspect of fitness. And I realized that diet obviously is really important. I figured, let me find a diet that I agree with and I will promote that type of eating. The problem was I couldn't find one because I found that I was certified to teach the zone diet at one point. I was teaching all different type of diets, but I found that at the end of the day, my clients always end up regaining the weight back. And that's when I started asking the question, is there something wrong with the people or is there something wrong with the approaches? Because as you might already know the statistics, 95% of the people who lose weight gain it back. And that was the basic question actually started me on my quest to find what really works. Because I found the biggest issue with a lot of the fitness advice that we get today are not practical. That might be effective, but if you can't live with them, what difference would they make? None. And what helped me actually found what really works is my upbringing, because I was raised in Greece on an island. At that time, when I lived there in the 70s and 80s, thin was the norm. People lived long, healthy lives, and cancer was a rare disease. So actually, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all those diseases a lot of people suffer from today were very rare there. And what I realized is that what I was learning in school on proper nutrition and how to improve your health completely contradicted my upbringing. And that's how I started looking at, okay, what behaviors do we have there that kept us in shape? And that's how actually I came up with the Stavros Method, is I looked at what healthy behaviors I was raised with and what healthy behaviors other healthy regions around the world have in common. And I came up with the 5 that I teach through my Stavros Method.
I would just talk to my wife, not about your 5, but we're talking about the state of the world and how like cancer is so much more prominent here in America and Alzheimer's and all of those things. And she's from South America originally. So she's like, this is not really rampant where she's from. And so it's new for her because she works in the hospital now. So she sees all of it, right? And it's so bizarre to her because she's like, this, wasn't my upbringing. And then she comes here and it's the norm. Like everyone has diabetes, everyone has some problem. And so her and I were just talking about that, about like the different types of foods. And she follows other doctors and other people who have a natural or holistic type of approach to dieting and eating. And her and I were just having a conversation for about 30 minutes, an hour yesterday, just talking about the different foods and the diets that we should be eating and kind of comparing it to what most people eat.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's very different. And for me, it was to come to the same realization that, like, I'll give you an example. One of my goals in life is to break the Guinness World Record in longevity. And do you know what the reaction I get when I tell that to people? "Well, I don't want to go past 80. I go, why not? Oh, I don't want to have this disease, that disease. Like, you don't have to have any of those diseases just because you got older. It doesn't mean that you're going to get it. But because people see people suffer as they get older and they consider that normal. And I'm like, it's not normal. It's an effect of our behaviors. It's what happens to us because of our behaviors. I was raised in Greece. We're in Greece when I lived there, by the way. Now, unfortunately, is not as good as it used to be. People in their 90s and 100s who lived independently, disease-free, and the normal way of dying was you went to sleep and you didn't wake up. You didn't suffer for 2 or 3 years before you died from some disease. And to me, it's like what I looked at is the behaviors, our healthy habits that we had in Greece that was part of our culture, and the traditions made sure that those healthy behaviors passed down from generation to generation. Unfortunately, in the modern world, in the Western world, we've lost a lot of our traditions. And right now, what creates traditions are the marketers. Marketers are not looking after your health. They're looking after selling a product. And that's how I think a lot of the bad behaviors that's killing us and that creates disease have been developed.
You just opened up a great talking point there, traditions. Not only are marketers trying to get us to buy their product and go away from what worked for our ancestors, but ripping apart the family type of scene, right? So now people are going to be moving on. Kids nowadays are so quick to put their parent in a nursing home.
Yes.
Oh, mom, dad, they're old, nursing home. Grandma's old, just throw her in a nursing home. She'll be okay, right?
Yeah.
Versus, I'm sure the way you were raised in Greece is going to be different, right? If you had to take care of a family member, you took care of the family member. What they did in the olden times, I'm just gonna call it the olden times, but it wasn't the olden times, is they had kids because when they got older, the kids would help them, will help take care of the farm, will help take care of the house, the family, whatever it be. Now it's kind of like we're living in a modern world where families separate as soon as the kid goes off to college and then starts their own life.
Exactly. And I think it's sad because I think I know in Greece, there were 3 or 4 generations living under the same roof. And also part of the reason I think why the older generation is aging at a much faster rate is because the society makes them feel as a burden to society. Or in Greece, where I was raised, it wasn't a burden. You still felt useful because you helped your kids. And then when you got older, the kids helped you. They helped with the grandkids. They felt like it had a purpose. And unfortunately, in today's society, once you get too old, you're something that you just thrown to the side and you just go to some nursing home to die off with no purpose. And as you know, I think purpose in life is the most important thing to stay alive. Once you lose your purpose, I don't know if you know the statistic on retirement, average person only lives 2.5 years after retirement because you lose. That's why to me it's so important to have purpose. And I think family is also a purpose, like to keep the family together. And we're still keeping my family here. I have a big Greek family and we're still everybody lives within a 45-minute drive. We still get together. The parents, grandparents are all around, which is really nice.
That type of upbringing and that way of living is a lost art form per se. When it comes to, raising family, being traditional. If we had more people who held families to a higher regard, we would solve a lot of issues that we have, right? And we're not going to get into it because it's a lot of political stuff.
The whole topic, especially mental issues.
Exactly. If you had a strong family upbringing that knew, even if you had some type of problem, right? So let's say you had ADHD, right? Just as an example, ADHD, you can't control yourself. You can control yourself. It's just that the doctor says you can't control yourself. So now the mind says you can't control yourself. You hit 65, you say I'm old and I'm retiring and there's nothing for me to do. I mean, it's a cascading effect. And this is all mindset. This is what I work with. It's what do you want for yourself? When you get to be 70 years old, do you want to be able to walk? Look at your family, right? Is your mom walking still at 70? If your mom's not 70 yet, look past her, her mother, your grandmother, and see if she's still walking, doing all the things that she wants to. My great grandmother was walking, cooking at 90. And then eventually we were coming in, taking the work away from her. We're saying, just take it easy. But that's a death sentence. because we're taking that away from them. And I worked in a nursing home for 6 years. So I saw firsthand on if you put someone in there, give them everything that they need, they don't have to do anything, how fast they deteriorate.
I agree 100% because my mother is 75, and I'm so glad she moved back to Greece. But even when she was here, actually was here visiting a year ago, and we went food shopping. Like she walked like a normal person, like actually fast, even faster than some 40-year-olds. But she's full of energy. Like now she lives in Greece, everything's walking distance. She lives independently. Like you could not tell this lady's 75 years old. But to me, that's the norm, though. And when she was here, she had a fall. Thank God she's fine. And she had a really bad cut on her head. She went to the hospital. The doctor asked, "Oh, how many medications are you taking?" None. They looked at her like she was an alien or something. What do you mean none? Everybody takes medication. But to me, in Greece, where I was raised, that was the norm. And to me, we can go back to that by reintroducing back into our lives the healthy behaviors that was part of human nature. And we can do that. We can come back to being much, much healthier and not requiring all this medication. And we can live independent on our own, which is, not having to go to a nursing home.
They have made it so rampant that you need medication, that you need some type of miracle drug for you to feel better or to be safe. For me, it's like we have been alive for all of these years, for millennia. And the human immune system, the human body has been strong and forefront on any type of disease that we have ever faced. I know like the ancient Mayans, when they encountered smallpox and it kind of wiped them out, that was a different type of situation, right? Because they have never had to have that immune system for their generations or for their upbringing. So of course, they are going to be more susceptible. But if someone is going to be introduced to the common cold, to flus, things like that, then of course, it's automatically going to be in our DNA, in our genetics to handle that. Most of the things that we're presented with today, our body can handle. Yet the drug companies, they make it so people fear getting sick, fear getting old. Oh, my back hurts. I have to go see a specialist, or I need a new mattress, or whatever it be, versus, well, let's really look at how you're living, because I think that is really where it starts, how you're living. And I know you have these 5 ancient habits that you now have moved into the Stavros method. So I kind of want to dive into those 5 methods, and then we can kind of dissect them.
Well, the first one, which I think everybody knows, is the exercise habit, obviously, because due to our modern conveniences, we no longer challenge our muscles as much as they used to be. We don't challenge the cardiovascular system as much. And that's why our system is deteriorating at a much faster rate. When I lived in Greece, we didn't have a gym. There was no gym, no gym equipment. And yet we stay in shape. Why? Because our everyday life was challenging enough that kept our muscles in shape. Unfortunately, today, we do need to exercise. We do need, because our everyday life is in an office, most of us, that we don't have to challenge them. But here's the big but. I think the mistake that I see a lot of people make when they start an exercise program is they focus on results. I always tell my clients, the first goal of an exercise program is not results, but to develop the habit of exercising. And by saying that, because develop a habit, you got to repeat something enough times. You repeat something enough times, it becomes habitual. But if you start with a workout that's an hour long, extremely intense, 5 days a week, what is the chance of you repeating that workout long enough to make it a habit? Well, for most people, slim to none. So I tell people, start slowly, simple routine that takes you 5, 10, 15 minutes. And then as you get into it, then intensify slowly. So like that's the first habit. The second habit is, I call it the 16-hour habit. It's similar to intermittent fasting. But I was teaching that before intermittent fasting was even a thing, because the 16-hour habit is something that we did in Greece every day, because basically we never ate breakfast. It was lunch, dinner. There was never breakfast. Breakfast was something you had on the weekends. It wasn't something that you ate all the time. The next habit is what I call the eat no more than twice and only when truly hungry. When was the last time anybody, before they eat something, ask themselves, am I truly hungry, or am I eating because it's mealtime? We've been taught, we're talking about marketers, we've been taught to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, snacks in between, never stop and asking, wait a minute, am I hungry? So that's one thing I teach people, identify true hunger and learn to eat because of it. Again, most of the time, because I do believe that the 80-20, if 80% of the time you can eat the right foods, your body will forgive you for 20% of the time you don't do the right things. So that's why I always tell people my rules are Monday to Friday, weekends, relax. The fourth habit is to eat slowly and mindfully and stop eating when you satisfy your hunger. Again, if you're not eating slowly and mindfully, you're not going to know when your hunger has been satisfied. Because most people who have about 10 minutes for lunch, you wolf down your food. Do you really enjoy that food, or you just ate it just because it was mealtime? The fifth one, my favorite one, is make junk food special. Yes, junk food is bad for your health. I agree. But I'm a realist. Junk food tastes way too good to give up. Think about it. If it was easy to give up junk food, all the junk food companies would be out of business by now. They're not. So instead, what I've done is, like I remember in Greece, we ate our fair share of junk food, but it was something special. Like I remember like on the weekends, my mother, if it was a good movie on TV, by the way, our TV only had 2 channels and only started after 5 p.m. She would get us potato chip and Coke. It was such a big deal. Like, oh my God, potato chip and Coke. Nowadays, kids have Coke and potato chips every single day. Those things were not meant to be have every day. It's something you was meant to have once in a while. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Greek desserts at all, like baklava, galactoboudicca. They're very high calories, high sugar, sweet. I love them. And people say, oh, how you guys can eat that stuff in Greece and not gain weight? Because that was something you had on Christmas, on Easter, on the holidays. It wasn't something you had every single day of the week. So those are the 5 habits, the main ones that I teach. But the big but is, have you heard the saying, knowledge is power? Well, I disagree with that saying. I said, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. Because, yeah, I can teach you all these habits, but if you don't apply them into your life, would they make any difference? No, of course not. And that's why, to me, not just identifying these 5 habits, it wasn't enough. I also had to find a way to help people implement them into their life. And that's why I came up with the idea, with the exercise. Forget the results. Let's focus on making exercise habitual first. How can we do that? Break everything into very little tiny steps that are easy for you to keep taking regularly so they become habitual. I give you actually a funny story that actually changed my whole life. Flossing. Obviously, flossing is really good for your teeth. Everybody knows it. And yet, most people don't do it. I was one of those people, by the way, 20 years ago. My dentist is also my client here. So I was getting annoyed with myself. So I would go for my regular cleanup. My dentist would tell me how I'm not flossing enough, like I did not know it. He would give me all the reasons why I should be flossing. I would get inspired. I would floss for a couple of weeks, and I would fall off the wagon. Sounds familiar? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to get people to exercise regularly. I can't even get myself to floss. I just felt like a hypocrite. So that's when I started doing a lot of research on habit creation. After learning about the Kaizen method, which is an ancient Asian philosophical system for your audience that might not know, it's all about taking something, breaking down to the smallest step possible and take it. So I took flossing. I said, what's the smallest step I can take? Well, floss 1 tooth. So I started flossing 1 tooth, up and down, done. I told my dentist what I was doing, and his reaction was, you're not flossing, you're wasting your time. I said, George, you're missing the point. I'm not trying to floss. Forget the result. I'm trying to develop the habit of picking up the string every night. It took me around 2 months. And within 2 months, I found myself flossing every single tooth, and I never miss a day now. It's part of my habit. Now I started playing the same thing with exercising. And it worked wonderfully. The thing that people had to overcome was when, like, for example, most of my clients that I work with are people who are complete beginners. They hate exercising. So they will come to me and say, okay, let's start developing the walking habit. So your homework for the week is to walk 3 times, 1 minute each time. And they will look at me, what the heck will 1 minute do? Like, it's not going to do anything, I'll tell you that much. But what it will do, you can't come back to me next week and tell me I didn't find 1 minute 3 times a week to walk. On the other hand, if I give you the advice that a lot of trainers give, which is at least 20 minutes, you get home, you're tired. What is the chance of you getting on the treadmill or walking for 20 minutes or walking outside? Not very good. 1 minute, if you know this crazy trainer is going to ask you if you did the 1 minute, more likely. So now we're developing a behavior of getting on the treadmill or walking outside. And then how many times are you going to stop after 1 minute? Most likely you're going to keep going. And that's how you slowly start walking regularly. And then let's start lifting, for instance. Let's start with push-ups. Just do 10 push-ups. Yes, push-ups is only going to work your chest, your arms a little bit. It's not going to work your full body. But again, forget the results. Let's get into the habit of exercising. Once you get used to doing push-ups 3 or 4 times a week, well, let's add the back or let's add the shoulders. And that's how we slowly get into the habit.
For me, when it comes to exercise, it's kind of like you can look at the goal or you
Yeah.
can look at where you are today. So for me, I would rather look at where I am today. It's kind of similar to like looking at, okay, I did 1 minute a day, I'm successful versus, oh, I don't have the dream body, right? I don't look
Yes.
like a model.
Yeah.
I don't have a six pack. For me, I look more at how do I feel today? When I wake up, do I feel good? Do I feel sluggish or do I feel slow after the gym? Do I feel like that was a good workout? And even if it wasn't a good workout, I'm not going to be critical of that workout. I'm still going to understand I went to the gym because I'm supposed to go to the gym 5 days out of the week for me. And then I have different workouts, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way up to Z. And Z is a very low workout. A is the best workout. I don't give myself a grade like the school system. It's more of what workout did I do today? So then I kind of know where my percent was. So if I did an A workout, that means I did a killer job in the gym.
Yeah.
I did every single set. I challenged myself. Maybe some days I do a B workout. And then I just asked myself, I was like, okay, well, why did I do a B workout today? Not judging myself. I just said, you know what? I didn't get good sleep last night. So tonight I'm going to make it a priority to get some extra sleep. It could be 30 minutes. And I get the 30 minutes. And then tomorrow I'm back to an A workout. Maybe I fell off to a C workout. And I say, why am I at a C workout? And I very rarely go past C. Only time I would ever go to like past D is if I'm sick. Like I'm in bed, I can't get out.
Exactly.
And I'll literally get out of bed and like do some sit-ups on the floor, like 1 or 2 or whatever it be. But for me, at that point, it's like, okay, well, let's focus on recovery more so than, oh, I need to make sure I keep my body. Otherwise, no one's going to like me, things like that.
Yeah.
How am I feeling is important for me because then I can always give 100%. That's my goal. If I can give 100%, then I know I'm making today the best day I can versus if I'm giving 90%, if I'm giving 80%. And I think what happens is people kind of go downhill. I'll give a quick story. When I was done with college, in college, I worked full-time job, a part-time job, and I did 12 to 18 credits any given semester. So that's a lot of work, right? So I'm barely having time to even live, but I was still able to have friends, family time. I made time for it. But then once I graduated, guess what happened? I didn't have to go to work 60 plus hours a week. I just went to my career as a teacher. I went to school Monday through Friday, had the summers off. And then after the end of school, I got to go home. I was no classes that I had to go to and there was no schoolwork. So I just like, well, what am I going to do? Watch movies? So I watch movies and then I still would go to the gym and things like that. But what I noticed is that in college, I was operating at a high efficiency. But then once I started to get out of college and then into my career, I was kind of going downhill where it was like, I wasn't as productive anymore. So I was like, why am I not productive? We used to be so productive and people fall into habits. They fall into routines. Oh, this feels nice. I don't have to go to the gym. Oh, this feels nice. Oh, like I only have to work this much and I make this much money. This feels nice. So we get into that static 9 to 5 job. And then we get to the idea of I will get my 2 weeks off every single year. I retire at 65. And then they keep that in the hope that they're going to find happiness. And I think that is where the mind is, where we focus so much on the end result. It's difficult for people to say, well, let me pay attention to this moment. And then that kind of goes into, your step number 4. But we're still talking about exercise is like how people are not really pushing themselves.
Too much comfort is killing us, basically. And what I was going to say before, you were talking about your exercise philosophy. And it's funny, I agree with you 100% because I have similar philosophy to you. But I don't call them ABC. What I've done actually is my workout consists of around 9 exercises. But I have the 3 must-do exercises. Mm-hmm. So if I don't feel like exercising, I got to do those 3 minimum. And then if I feel like I do the rest of them. As long as I do something, I feel successful. But most of the time, like you, once you get going, you end up doing most of them anyway. And but back to the question, I like the question, how you asking yourself all these questions. Here's an interesting fact. Socrates had 3 questions he told his students to ask themselves every night, that those 3 questions are going to help you better yourself one day at a time. So here are the 3 questions. First one, what did I do wrong today? And what I should have done instead? And again, without beating yourself up. In other words, just asking the question just like you did. The second question, what did I do right today? And again, you got to give yourself credit. And the third question, what I didn't do today and I should have done. And by asking those 3 questions every night, you slowly make small improvements. And to me, the way I look at success, I actually am the same exact way as you, that yes, I have a goal, but my success indicator is how am I doing on whatever habit I'm trying to develop. So let's say, for argument's sake, we try to develop the walking habit. And let's say this week I walk 5 days a week of 5 minutes each. The following week I walked 5 days, 7 minutes on average. I'm making progress. I'm doing great. And I do agree also, I think we're all on the same page that now we got to focus on the now. Too many people are focusing in the future. At someday when I have the nice body, when I retire, I'm going to enjoy life. No, you got to, yes, have goals, but enjoy the now, enjoy the process. I agree with 100%. I think that's a good philosophy to have. Anyway, so to me, that's how the exercise, slowly get into it. That's, I think, the bottom line is get into it slowly, try not to kill yourself. The first eating habit, which I think is the most important one, is the 16-hour habit. Autophagy, I came up again, the Japanese doctor. It was discovered actually in the 1970s, but a Japanese doctor actually discovered the process and the benefits of autophagy and exactly what happens to the body. In 2016, he won a Nobel Prize in medicine, actually. So he discovered when you take prolonged breaks from food, 16 hours or longer, the body goes within to find the proteins that it needs. When I was taught in school, if you have lack of protein or if you don't eat for too long, the body's going to eat up your muscles. That is not completely correct. The body's not dumb. It's not going to eat up the muscles that it needs, especially if you weight training regularly. First, going to try to find the protein from sources it doesn't need. So misfolded proteins, one of the sources. Misfolded proteins are the precursor to pretty much all the mental diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all those diseases. He actually breaks down the misfolded proteins and gets the amino acids he needs. Then the next is mutated and dysfunctional cells. Those are the precursors to cancer. So by going to autophagy on a regular basis, it doesn't have to be every single day, by the way, but by taking breaks from food, the body goes into the process. So it gets rid of those things that could cause mental diseases or cancer. Now, if you look at the island of Ikaria, it's a Greek island. It has the second longest lifespan in the world after Okinawa. The island, 1/3 of the population is over the age of 90. Do you know what percent of those people have some form of dementia or Parkinson's or, Alzheimer's? 0. Doesn't exist. In the United States, 40% of the population over the age of 70, which probably already know that, have some form of mental disease. How come they don't have any? Of course, you ask some doctors here, and that's why it annoys me a little bit. It's like, oh, they have the perfect genes over there. Are you kidding me? Oh, so in my home city, we should have the same diet as Ikaria, by the way. And it was the same thing. Now you go back to my home city, cancer, Alzheimer's, all those diseases all of a sudden appeared. What changed? Our genes changed in the past 30 years? No, our diet changed, our way of life changed. And the island of Ikaria, because they're so cut off, the marketers haven't gotten to them yet. So they still have the same old habits. I just read a sad report, though, a few months ago, that the youth there, unfortunately, are not following the traditions as their parents and grandparents. So they're even near now, they're losing their traditions. That's why the 16-hour habit, some of the other benefits are that it makes your body more efficient at burning fat. Isn't that what we want? It detoxifies the system. There's so many benefits. And that's why it's the first eating habit from the eating habits that I teach is like, learn to take a break from food. It's actually good to take a break from food. And if you look at every healthy region around the world, have that in common. That was part of, if you look at human history, on average, people only used to eat once or twice a day. The 3 meal a day, actually, it's a recent invention. Actually, what the history is showing, it started out of England. I think Queen Elizabeth, 200 years ago, started that idea of eating 3 meals a day. And it's become very popular today. But if you look at healthy regions around the world, on average, only eat once or twice a day. And in the old days, there's actually a tribe in Africa that is one of the last tribes left. It's the true hunter-gatherers, untouched by the West. On average, they eat 5 times a week because the men go out hunting, women stay in the village, they prepare their vegetables, wherever else they eat. A lot of times the men, though, will not find anything and they won't come back for a couple of days. So they didn't eat that day. They just ate when they came home. And they're extremely healthy with none of the Western diseases. Now you're going to tell them what? They have the perfect genes there too?
Kind of goes into the idea of we have gone away from that hunter-gatherer type of living where if we want food, we can order DoorDash. If we want food, we can call up Uber Eats. We can go to a drive-through. We can go to the grocery store, pick up something quick and easy. What that does is it stops us from having to go out and get those extra steps in and burn all the unnecessary calories that we just consume in our day, because our day is so boring and mundane nowadays. We sit in an office, guess what's next to us? A bag of potato chips. By the end of the day, the bag of potato chips is gone. It's like, where do they go? We eat because of habit. On breakfast time, guess what? It's a habit. Like I wake up, oh, I got to eat because it's breakfast time. For that, I will say for kids, it's a little bit different because kids are still growing up and they are growing at a rapid rate. So their body needs nutrition, but we're talking about adults. So I don't want anyone to come and say,
we're done growing.
Yeah, exactly. Unless your belly's growing, you're drinking too much beer. So we have to understand that, right? So age is going to play a determining factor there. But when you're older, right? So probably like 18 plus, right? So like that's kind of a safe number to say you will probably be good on 2 meals a day. If you need more than that, talk to Stavros over here and he can tell you otherwise, because you only need 1 good meal, maybe 2 good meals if you can't fit in 1 good meal. For me, I eat once a day at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So I eat at 12 and then I'm good for the rest of the day.
I eat 1 meal a day. I have mine at the end of the day though. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
And if I'm hungry throughout the day, I drink some water. Now, for some reason, if I'm like starving, like I had a crazy workout and I just need more food, I'll have a protein shake. I put superfood in it and things like that. Protein powder, whatever. And then that is going to give me all the energy I need for the rest of the day. I don't have to go out and get some food or cook something else again, because I have a heavy hand when it comes to cooking. I eat 1 meal a day. So I eat for 1 meal. Yes. And so I cook for 1 meal too. So it's like for me to make something and then not overeat in the evening time is more difficult because of my habit. So I have to understand that. So I said, well, what can I eat in the evening time if I get hungry? A protein shake. That's what I learned. Drink a protein shake. And that gets me to the next day. Typically in the morning, I'm good. And for some reason, if I'm hungry in the morning, for some reason, I'm like starving, I put lemon in my water and I just drink lemon water, go to the gym. After the gym, I feel good. And then I make it till 12. So many people don't understand the benefits of eating 1 or 2 times a day, or even the fact of intermittent fasting. For me, it's like you give your body an opportunity to digest all the food you ate. And many people are just so quick to consume, and then they don't give their body a chance to eat all that food or to utilize all that food.
I agree, because to me, I remember when I first got out of the school, the only debate we were having is what's the best food to eat for breakfast? What's the best food to eat for lunch? And what's the best food to eat for dinner? Nobody stopped and asked the question like, wait a minute. Do I need to eat breakfast? Do I need to eat lunch? And do I need to eat dinner? There was never a debate. It's funny, like I said, to me, I'm thankful that I was raised in Greece, that I was able to see firsthand how a healthy region lives and eat. And talking about kids in Greece, even back then, once in a while we would eat breakfast and once in a while we would not. But it was always about, am I hungry? We're adults, they never ate breakfast. As far as the main meal is concerned, it was a big lunch. But we rested after lunch, by the way. We always took, it was like a 3-hour lunch break. And then we had a very light dinner if we ate dinner. In the villages, though, was the exact opposite. In the village where my mother was raised, lunch was very light. Dinner was the heavier meal because they worked in the fields. So if you eat a really heavy meal at lunch, you cannot go back out and work. And it was something that was done instinctively. And come to find out, it was one of the best things that you can do for your health. Again, it's unfortunately that, really a quick story about breakfast. Edward Bernays, was hired in 1921, if I'm not mistaken, by a beech nut packaging company because they sold pork bellies and they want to increase the sales of pork bellies, bacon, in other words. What he did was he went to the doctor that worked for him and said to him, do you think a high protein breakfast like bacon and eggs is good for the American people? And of course, the doctor that worked for him, what is he going to say? Oh, absolutely. But the question I have is, how much nutrition training do doctors have? Almost none. So anyway, so this doctor wrote to 5,000 of his colleagues to agree with that statement. So then Edward Bernays ran an ad, a PR campaign, which most of the publications at that time picked it up. And it said that 5,000 doctors agree that a high protein breakfast like bacon and eggs is really good for your health. And that's how bacon and eggs became popular in this country. And if you look at a lot of the ways that we eat, if you go back to the beginning, all started from a really smart marketing campaign. You'd be amazed at how good marketing can get people to do.
Oh, yeah, of course. And if you go to the grocery store, for example, how everything's arranged, they have like all the sugary stuff on the lower levels, and then all the good stuff typically is toward the top of the shelves. And it's just because kids can't see to the top of the shelf. So when the kids are walking down the aisle, the kids are seeing their Cheetos and they're seeing their Doritos and they're seeing their Lucky Charms. Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, right? And so guess what?
Yeah.
They get it. And then now it kind of goes down that process of you start them young, eating sugary sweets. Now they're attached, they're hooked. That's what they think they need. And they continue that for the rest of their life. And then that's why obesity is so rampant. And that's why many people are, breaking down at the age of 30. It's like, oh, like my knees hurt, my back hurts. It's like, but you're 30 years old. You should be perfectly fine. I know people in the gym who are like 70, 80 years old that look better than me. And I'm like, man, you look amazing, number one. And I always tell them every time they come in, I said, you look great today. And they're like, like it's all about diet and nutrition and, being consistent with your workouts and things like that. Then they have a routine, and that routine can be as simple as, every evening, my spouse and I, we go walk around the lake. They walk around the lake every evening, right? And it might not seem like, oh, I'm exercising. I'm spending time with my partner, but you're still getting your steps in versus I'm going to stay inside with my partner and watch a movie tonight. It's a big difference in how society's switching over from what it used to be and then how it is today.
You made a very good point, though, as far as took a walk. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to exercise. I'm going to spend some time with my spouse. And I know like in Greece, the same point I always make is that we didn't even know what a calorie was. Like in Greece, we didn't eat a diet that was high in fruits and vegetables because we wanted to be healthy. We ate that way because our traditions taught us to eat that way. And it was not like, we never focused on our health and yet we're healthy. Why? Because the things that kept us in shape were habitual behaviors. But before, when you mentioned kids, the one advice that I give to my clients, is that's the same way I have two kids, 11 and 16 now, and they eat really well. And the way I got them to eat well, and again, they don't eat perfect. Like I don't eat perfect myself, but I eat perfect 80% of the time, is the rule on junk food. All of my favorite junk food is in the house. My kids know exactly where it is. Even my kids, they know the rule is Monday through Friday, we don't need junk food. Friday after 5 p.m., you want to have some soda, you want to have some ice cream, whatever, you can have it. But because they can have it every weekend, they can have half a can of soda and dump the rest. They don't have this craving that, I got to eat all of it because it tastes so good. And by teaching them to treat junk food special, they can go to somebody's house, and even if they offer them ice cream or something, which is during the week, they don't feel compelled of having it. And that's why I made the rule of make junk food special instead of get rid of junk food, because I tried to get rid of junk food the first time around. It didn't work out too well. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story, because I said to my wife, okay, I'm going to get rid of junk food. So I get rid of all junk food from the house. I last a couple of weeks. And then I would go to my mother. So my mother used to live in the States. My mother kept devil dogs. I used to love devil dogs. But when I go to my mother's house, I would have half of the box because I felt like, I can't have them. So once I saw them, I couldn't resist. And I realized I have to learn to control myself, not my environment. And that's how I came up with the idea of making it special, keep it in the house, learn to be able to see junk food or being offered junk food and learn to say, no, thank you, with no problem. Because if you're trying to control your environment's now always under your control. It is not a sustainable solution to the problem.
For me, I have rules, and it was so funny. Whenever I tell people these rules, they are like, "I don't want to live in your house." I'm like, "Good. I don't want any extra people." So Monday through Thursday, there's no TV. The TV doesn't turn on. Read a book. You can go on your phone if you need to do something, but the TVs don't turn on. I don't want to hear the TVs on Monday through Thursday. Those are work days. You should be growing those days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't care if you watch TV for 24 hours every single day.
Yeah.
Relax. Monday through Thursday, there's no TV. There's no cell phones at the table. And then, of course, eating habits, things like that too. There's no eating in the living room. Yeah. It's just because when you're in the living room, you're watching, you're distracted. You just have a tendency to eat so much more. So it's kind of like pay attention to your food. And it kind of goes into our step 4, which is being mindful.
Yes.
Where it's kind of like be mindful of what you're putting into your body, of how much you're consuming. It takes on average the typical body about 15 minutes or about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on the person, for the brain to finally say, hey, I'm full. I had enough. If you keep eating and you're overeat, then the body's going to be like, well, I don't need all this. So what is it going to do? It's going to store it, because the body is so smart, and it's going to say, you know what? You ate too much. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to store it as fat for a rainy day. Well, we're living in a very modern society where we don't have many rainy days. There's not many people who are going to be missing a meal. So what happens is they overeat one day that they should be now intermittent fasting to kind of use up that food that they stored, but they don't. So now they eat more food and they overeat again. And now it's kind of tacking on. So now the weight's going up, and they're wondering what they're doing. They're like, I'm eating, the same food that I always eat, but you're just not being mindful to how much you're eating, because your body might not need what you're giving it. And you might be older now, and maybe when you're younger, you were very athletic, right? Exactly. Maybe you played sports, football, soccer, going out with friends, all that stuff. And now you're older, you're a family person, and maybe you don't go as much. You don't do as much activity. So now your body doesn't require as many calories, but you're still thinking the way you did in high school or the way you're thinking in college.
Yep.
You grow.
And exactly. Well, that's why I get people in trouble with the mindless eating. And I think that to me, one of the rules that I have to help people slow down is what I call watch your FPMs, your forks per minute, and then the rule that I actually did a couple of experiments myself. My family's in the restaurant business. Actually, myself, I also have a degree in culinary arts. My family owns diners. So a lot of times we'll go out and hang out at the diner and just watch people and just watch to see on average how fast do they eat. And it became extremely obvious that the more overweight the person, the faster they eat. I mean, some people will put in the fork in their mouth 9 and 10 times in 1 minute. And if you look at people who tend to be thinner, 1 or 2, 3 max. Now, there were also exceptions. I mean, there was one guy, very overweight person. He only put the fork in his mouth twice. Now, it was a good indicator that the faster you eat, the more food you're going to eat. And it's funny talking about the rules, the same rules at my house, that when we eat Monday to Friday, we eat at the dinner table, no cell phones, no TV on. We're eating as a family. On the weekends, we made exceptions. Like, sometimes I'll do it like my pizza and we'll eat in front of the TV. But it was like the exception. But during the week, and I think all these rules, to me, are good. Every society has rules. Even in Greece, we had rules that we follow. But because we're habitual, we didn't think of them as rules. To me, that's how kids learn. They learn from us. They learn because I know a lot of my clients that, they're telling me about their kids and they don't eat enough vegetables, for example. And the question I ask them is, well, how many vegetables do you eat? Oh, I don't like vegetables. Well, what do you expect the kid's going to do? The kid doesn't learn from what you tell them. They learn from what you're doing. So be the example to others. And that, I think, especially as a parent, again, sometimes you realize like my son would do something and he would tell me something that I didn't like. Because, Dad, you do the same thing. And I think for a second, I'm like, yeah, he's right. And that's why it made me realize I got to watch my habits because the kids pick up everything.
So for me, it's kind of like you have to be the example.
Yeah.
And you can't be a hypocrite. You said it early on in the beginning. And I believe it's the same thing in my coaching business, where it's like, if I'm not in the right mindset to help people and I'm helping people, I'm like a hypocrite. And it's like, I'm not following what I'm supposed to be doing. And, I'm blessed, or I'm fortunate to say, like I do have a good life. I do have a good marriage. I do have a good career. For many people, they might have an okay career, okay marriage, and then they think everything's okay. So they don't want to make it better. So it's kind of like even our diet, where we can make some changes and make it better. We can have a better, healthy body. But sometimes people just say, well, it's good enough, right? And as long as it's good enough, then they don't really propel themselves. And for me, I always challenge myself. It's like, well, this not good enough. Like, let's make it good, right? Like, it doesn't have to be just barely good. Like, I wouldn't be satisfied if I was in an unhappy marriage, or if I was in a career I was failing at, or I didn't like. I mean, I was an accountant, I was a teacher. And I mean, I left those professions to do what I'm doing today, which is coaching. I could have stayed in accounting, made great money, could have stayed in teaching, helped all these students grow and learn and be, wonderful members of society. But I decided to do something different. So I would say out of the first two jobs, I would still be a teacher, but I wanted something different. I wanted to do more in my life. So I still wanted a challenge. And if I stayed there, I would have had regrets later on in life. It was something I asked myself, like, if I stay in teaching until I retire, will I have regrets? And the answer was yes. I mean, I asked myself this question. So that's why I left teaching. So I didn't want to have regrets. And then I started to move into a way I wouldn't have those regrets. And many people, they just kind of do things. And when they finally run out of time, because everyone thinks they have time, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it later.
Wow.
And then when they finally realize that they don't have any more time, then they're like, oh, I messed up. Now I have regrets, right? It's kind of like we place contingencies on everything. And it's going to be like, I'll do it when. If I get this much money, I'm going to start saving. Like they put all these contingencies when we can start now. So like exercising 1 minute a day, right? There's no excuse. As you said earlier, you don't have to create a contingency. You're always busy with work. The kids were sick and you had 1 minute a day to walk. You chose not to, right? Intermittent fasting, the same thing. You chose to eat 3 or 4 times. And then by the time you realize like, wow, I could have just waited 16 hours, ate, and then, ate 2 times. And then I would have been full versus it's like, I will have to eat every single time I feel hungry. But sometimes we don't just feel hungry. We might be thirsty, but like our brain is saying, I think we're hungry. So you're probably dehydrated and then going to be mindful. And it's something I had to really work on too. Slow down, pay attention. And that's not just for eating. That's for everything in life.
Exactly. Before we're talking about, eating, is the response I get from a lot of people when I tell them that, on average, only once a day, like Monday to Friday, only once a day. Like, oh, no, I love food way too much to be eating only once a day. And my answer to that is like, I went to school for becoming a chef. I mean, I graduated. I love food. My whole family are great cooks. There's very few people that love food more than I do. But I get more enjoyment out of the one meal than most people get out of 5 meals. Mm-hmm. Because number one, as you know, when you eat out of true hunger, your taste buds are more sensitive. So you get more enjoyment out of the food. Because I eat my food mindfully and I'm really focusing on in my meal, I really enjoy what I'm eating. And since I'm not doing anything else, like a lot of times when people eat lunch and they have 10 minutes for lunch, how much enjoyment did you really get out of that 10 minutes? Almost none, because you probably doing some other work while putting food in your mouth. Do you really enjoy that food? We don't. And I also like what you said, that incrementally, I'm always, even today, try to become a better version of me. And I'm always asking myself the question, okay, what other little habit can I develop that would help me even more? And the first up to 5-6 years ago, more like 10 years ago, I was developing those 5 habits and I made sure I have them. Now I got, okay, what else can I go? And are you familiar with Wim Hof? I started developing his breathing technique. I've been doing this for the past 5 years. I started developing, I do the cold showers, I do ice bath, and all these little things. But I turned 50 a few months ago. The last time in the past 11 years, I gotten sick once, and it wasn't even that sick. To me, my goal for my 50s now is to never get sick again, because we were talking in the beginning, you don't have to get sick. A strong immune system will take care of almost anything. And I even test myself, because my kids, when they're sick, come from school, when they're sick, I still kiss them, I still drink from their cups. I don't go out of my way to avoid germs. I go out of my way and I don't get sick from them. And I don't get sick from anyone else, because I believe if I make my immune system strong enough, it can handle anything. And that's something, unfortunately, that people's immune system is so weak, we catch colds from every little thing.
When I was a teacher, I would get sick once a year. And it was because I told myself I get sick once a year because the kids bring in all these nasty things and I'm around kindergarteners and they were sneezing on me and sneezing in my face and wiping their nose on my arm. And I'm just like, oh, that's nice. For me, it was kind of like, I always told myself when I was a teacher, I'm going to get sick once a year and I'm going to get better. And then I'm going to not be sick anymore. But here's the interesting thing. After I was done teaching, I still got sick once a year. I got sick the following year. I got like the flu or something. And I'm thinking, I'm like, how in the heck did I get sick? Right. It was because I was under the mindset of I get sick once a year. So my body was like, hey, you're going to get sick once a year. So you might as well get sick. So then after I got sick that year, I was like, this is pointless. There's no reason for me to be sick. And then after that year, that was in 2018, I was fine. It was just me saying, oh, I get sick once a year. So I was getting sick for no reason when I was a teacher. And then after I was done teaching, and then I was just in my apartment at the time, I got sick. I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. And it was just because I was telling myself something. And sometimes
Exactly.
the mind is so powerful when it comes to what we tell it. Oh, yes, you're going to get sick. You're unhealthy. And guess what happens? You start to act that way that you're telling yourself. But if you start to be more positive in what you do, how you treat foods, things like that, then you have more power. I mean, even the junk foods, you don't have to stay away from them. Just
Yeah.
understand that you are in control of them. So like, I love what you do on the weekends, like, Friday after 5 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, have fun, right? Junk food, you want a can of soda, go for it. For me, it's kind of like every single day is kind of the same at this point in my life, where it's kind of like, I know what I'm going to do, where the weekends only dictate like more free time for me.
Yeah.
So like Monday through Thursday is work days, Friday is a flex day, and then Saturday and Sunday are relaxing days, but relaxing days can also be flex days. So sometimes I work on the weekend. So for example, this past weekend, I worked. I was behind on the podcast. I had to like get all that done. And so this whole weekend I had worked. And guess what happened on Monday? I was like, oh, I want to work more. So I was already in the work mode from the weekend versus coming off from the weekend saying, I was nice and relaxed, and this is now Monday. Got to work. I was already in work mode. I was like, I got to edit this, boom, 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 quick and easy. Going to the gym, no problem. And sometimes, people, they don't understand the difference between the two, where they can easily shift their mind. So it's like, oh, it's Monday, time to work. Not hate Monday. It's Monday. It's a work day. So for me, like I said, 4 days I work, then I have my flex days, and then I have my relaxing days. But I typically call my weekends flex days. And if I do need a day off because I feel like burnout is coming, I will give myself a whole day off. I know how burnout feels. So as soon as it's coming along the way, I say, you know what? It's time for me to take a day and just breathe.
No, exactly. And that's the thing is about listening to your body, listening to how you feel. And also, and sometimes you need time off and you need to relax. You relax without guilt, without feeling, oh, I should be doing something. Because a lot of times people relax, but then don't really relax because they're thinking about all the things they need to do instead of relax, not relax like physically, but relax mentally. And I think that's another thing that's killing our society is the amount of stress that we feel. And I think a lot of the stress is self-created. All stress is actually self-created, technically. It's how you view things that creates the stress. That the situation itself didn't do anything. It's how you look at things that makes the difference. And there's plenty of studies to support that idea.
Exactly. Getting back to those ancient and traditional ways of being. Some people say that's old school or those, it's outdated, but what we're doing today is not working for us. As you can see, so many people are getting sick and they're getting all these diseases that wasn't rampant in our ancestors' age and generations. So it's not that we're conforming to what our traditional features were. It's kind of like we understand what works for the body, what works for the human body. And the same thing with the human mind is that we have the potential, the capacity to do amazing things. And sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit. So it's kind of like people will say, well, if I don't do this diet, I won't lose weight. But you will lose weight. You just have to understand your body and understand what you need to do. You don't need a fad diet to make you look a certain way. You have the knowledge, you have the wisdom, per se, more than knowledge to get to that body. And so, of course, anyone who is stuck where they are with their health and wellness, understand that your habits are most likely the cause and effect that you have to first look at and then fix. And if you think that you can just go on a diet for 30 days and lose some weight, you are right. But then you're going to gain that weight right back because you are telling yourself, oh, in 30 days, I can lose the weight. Your mind is, again, so powerful. So you say you're going to lose weight in 30 days, you do. And then guess what happens after the 30 days? You gain back that weight because you said, I'm going to lose weight in 30 days. You're not saying I'm going to lose weight for a lifetime.
Exactly.
Just a small shift in what you say to yourself, what you tell yourself, speak positive, be mindful. There's so much to mindset. There's so much to what we talked about today on health and wellness and the food and dieting. nutrition, all of that, right? And it plays a huge role in who we are and how we are going to be in the future. So many people, again, they take life for granted. They think that they have tomorrow. They think that they can eat unhealthy today. They can go out and they can drink and they can do all this stuff. And then they just do it every single day versus for special occasions. I know you might have heard of social drinkers. They socially drink. So they might drink for their birthday, maybe a party or something like that, but they're not going out every single weekend to drink. So all these young kids having to go get liver transplants or their liver failing. Why is this? And it's because we had so many bad habits. And then also the liver is going to have to go through all those fatty foods and all that stuff. I mean, we're putting so much strain on our organs that is so unnecessary. And I love your method dealing with the 5 ancient habits, Stavros method. All of that is going to be essential for someone to get into a better mindset, to get into better health. And if I can from you, can I get any last words? And then, of course, please tell people where they can find you.
My message to your audience is that you want to lose weight and get in shape for life. Focus on one habit at a time. Change one habit, go to the next one. Don't worry about, and another thing to keep in mind is tomorrow never comes. There's only now. Because when tomorrow comes, then it's now. So always focus on whatever change you want to make it now. But keep them small and do that consistently each day. Try to make a small improvement. And if you'd like to learn more about my Stavros method, you can just go on the website, www.thestavrosmethod.com. So it's thestavrosmethod.com and have all the information about how to join. Basically, it's a 6-month program. So it has a beginning, has an end, because my goal is to make you independent, not dependent on my system for the rest of your life.
Perfect. All your links will be in the description box below, so anyone can easily find you and then commit to those 6 months, because many people who wait to New Year's resolutions or they wait for, their friend to finally say, hey, let's get in shape together, and they're looking for an accountability partner, they don't have to wait. They can contact you. They can say, for the next 6 months, I'm going to be accountable for what I eat and for my life. And once you do that, you're going to start to see everything change. I want to thank you so much, Stavros, for coming on Coaching in Session. Great conversation. And I know all the things that we talked about is going to be helpful for the people who are trying to get in shape.
Thank you, Michael, for having me on your show. Really enjoyed it.
All right, everyone. I would like to thank my guest, Stavros, for coming on Coaching in Session. As you can see, he's really passionate about what he does, the work he does, and he has some great points where we get into this state of mind, this way of living that it might seem absurd in the beginning, like, oh, I'm not going to eat 1 or 2 times a day. Oh, I'm not going to eat slow. I'm so busy. And then we try to make up all these excuses for not making changes. But I will tell you that if you can make these changes, you will start to see that your life will change for the better. And it might not seem like that in the beginning. Change sometimes can take a long time for us to really see. Look at your body, for example. If you go to the gym for a month, even if you went every single day, you're not going to see drastic changes. You might see some changes, yes, of course, but you're not going to be like, oh, I have my dream body, especially if you're out of shape. We have to understand things that we want in life can take time and it will take effort. And it's not so much gimme. It's kind of like pay attention to right now, this moment. What can you do today? And all of that put together is going to lead to better health, better wellness. Science beside, the human body is equipped to handle anything thrown at it. You just have to understand what you need and to make adjustments where you need supplements. Some people just automatically assume their body needs to be supplemented. It's all the mind. The mind is going to keep you safer than any type of medicine out there. The old ancient habits that Stavros is talking about is going to keep you in better health than any fad diet. We have to understand that the ways that we're going down with this modern type of society and modern way of thinking, and that science reigns supreme. It might reign supreme when going to the moon or going to Mars, but down on Earth and eating healthy and being well, that's something that our ancestors knew very well. And we're living in a world of fast food and gimme. Everyone wants quick. And then once they get obese or they get overweight, they want a quick fix. So the fast fix is actually not the best fix. And we have to get into that understanding that it's going to take some type of commitment, some type of effort. We talked about knowledge and wisdom. wisdom is going to be that thing that people have after they already experienced what you're probably going through. So you can read a book on health and wellness, and then you can trial and error, or you can get someone who has already tried it, someone who has already had clients that went down that road. So that wisdom is going to trump that knowledge. Of course, check him out. And I want to congratulate Stavros and his wife, Svetlana, on their 21st wedding anniversary. Congratulations, you two. And again, thank you, Stavros, for coming on Coaching in Session. I encourage people again to check him out. Check his links in the description box below. And once you do that, you can start the journey to get into a better mindset that's going to be really focused on health and wellness, because you deserve a good life. So don't wait until something breaks down in your body. Take the initiative and change your lifestyle today, and then you'll start to see that tomorrow can be better. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, you can email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.